Are you ready to marry your king or queen? If so, how do you build the strongest relationship possible and also have the ability to blast each other off into ecstatic, dissoluting bliss on demand? Well, that's what we're going to talk about today, which is really saying the highest aim for relationships, and that is sacred union. This is your invitation to become the alchemist of your life. You decode your heaven on earth and go through the alchemical process. The alchemist is a master of himself so that he can master life. People thought alchemists were turning lead into gold, but they're really crystallizing their soul into form. Alchemize your golden potential. Welcome to the golden life. Welcome to the golden life. My name is David Gilbert, and I'm here to help you become the alchemist of your life, because when you master yourself, you can also start to master your relationships, and that's what we're talking about today. The ultimate relationship with your life partner. And sacred union really is something that's not talked about as much today as I feel like it could be, because this is how we build the deepest, most long-lasting relationships that we can. And this is a topic near and dear to my heart. First of all, because I'm married and I'm walking the path of doing my best to try embody some of the qualities of sacred union, but also because this is one of the hardest challenges we will face if we're just being honest about it. Anybody knows that's in a long-term committed relationship, relationships are fucking hard. And excuse my French, but this isn't going to be an episode for kids. So if you're younger, please just wait till you get older and you're ready to get married to listen to this episode. But why do we have so much trouble in relationship? I'm not going to talk about all the different ways, but we know a lot of it does come down to communication, right? Or our emotional baggage that gets in the way and then creates emotional disconnect. And then this prevents us from enjoying the possibility of a beautiful, long-lasting relationship where you are both striving to help each other embody more love and potential. And if you stay to the end, I'm going to share one of my greatest tools in my own relationship that I've also started to share with others that will help you navigate communication and emotional disconnection a whole lot better. And starting off by first getting into sacred union. Maybe the subject is completely new to you and you've never heard about this idea of sacred union. Well, my own definition of sacred union is when two humans are pursuing the highest aim of creating the strongest relationship in service to each other and each other's highest expression of potential and love, ultimately integrating as one being in a sacred trinity with the Creator. And when it comes to the path to sacred union, here's something that I wrote in the guidebook for clients that have gone through this couples experience that I've created, where me and my wife take them through this 2-day program called The Road to Sacred Union. And it starts off like this. The road to sacred union is like climbing to the peak of a jagged mountain. You will get scraped, bruised, and lost. Yet when you make it beyond the tree line and above the clouds, you touch the warmth of a numinous. As two consciously live in the service of the one, there is no greater height mankind may experience. Welcome to the Blissfuck Crucifixion of sacred union. So that is what we are jumping into today. Sacred union is all the things. To borrow the term from my mentor, Jamie Wheel, Blissfuck. It truly is the Blissfuck Crucifixion, because we are in service to each other, which means we're going to hit some of our own wounds, and we also get to blast each other off with ecstatic lovemaking. And all these things are what we're going to talk about today. So let's jump right in. And I want to start today off by sharing a story about this bag here. And this was a gift from a previous client, but also just a real dear friend, Melody. And she gifted this to Alyssa and I, my wife and I, And inside, what do you think is in there? Inside, you will find 2 jagged crystals. And then there's also a beautiful thing. It's a little heart, and it says, "Stay in the bag." Well, what is this all about? This is an illustration of a beautiful story of what it looks like to come together in union. And this means 2 souls choose to live in the bag of commitment. And what happens when you take these little crystals and put them in the bag? Well, you put them in there together through that bag of commitment, then you seal it up, and then you go through life, and it's like shaking it. All the things that life is going to serve you. Well, what happens then? Well, if I were to sit here for days or weeks or months and just be shaking, first of all, I'd have a really strong forearm. But second of all, when I take out the crystals, how would they be different? Well, they'd be like those smooth, beautiful crystals you see in a crystal shop. And this is to illustrate what happens when we live into a committed relationship. And this also perfectly illustrates why marriage is so goddamn rough. But to add my own spin to it, I would say the bag is also the intention to be held by the Creator for the highest good of all. This allows each crystal in the bag to kind of relax, to know that whatever is going to be brought up in the relationship is just asking to be released. It's just baggage asking to be let go of. And then you could both fully see each other and see the love not only in your lover's eyes, but also the love of the Creator holding you in this container. So combining this intention along with commitment allows the couple to be held by the divine. Now, this might sound like a lot. Like, who in the right mind would agree to being put in a bag and shaken until they become smooth? Well, maybe you're wondering, like, what's the prize? Like, why would I want to do that? Well, one of them is the fact that you have the potential in union, in committed relationship, to experience the highest levels of love, bliss, and ecstatic union. And what do I practically mean by that? Well, you have the ability to come together in partnership and experience through sensuality the highest levels of orgasmic bliss. Now, before I jump into that a little bit further and give you some Easter eggs to go explore, I just want to touch on the fact that overall, this isn't something that's talked so much about in today's society. And why is that? Well, we really lost touch with Eros. And Eros is what the Greeks would call the Greek god of erotic love. And this is to really say in the United States, we live in a society that represses a lot of sexual energy. But why do I bring this up? Because if we expand beyond our planet and we look at the universe as a whole, and we're also talking about sacred union, and this being one of the highest expressions of love embodied to keep that commitment connected to God, well, what is really happening when 2 people come together in committed relationship? And this is one of the biggest themes we know of our universe. I don't know if you can guess it, but I'm talking about Eros, I'm talking about sexual energy, I'm talking about coming together of the birds and the bees, aka I'm talking about what happens when we come together, and that is creation. So you could see, big picture view, the universe is driven by creation. And that's why sexual energy is so potent, and why you can hit the highest levels of ecstatic love and bliss, because it's this divine energy of creation. And when a person polarized in their masculine comes together with a person polarized in their feminine, well, there's this magnetic draw. And then why is that? Well, because this is the force of creation that lives through the entire universe. As Rumi says, I've shared this quote before, the universe is ecstatic creation. So one of the greatest acts of creation we have available to us as human beings is to actually manifest another divine being into physical form. And how is this done? Well, by the merging of both a man and a woman. And this isn't to say that you can't enter sacred union with a male and male relationship or female and female relationship, but just talking about the creation process. I just want to note, you could see that I said somebody polarized in their masculine and somebody polarized in their feminine. And if you want to learn more about this concept, then I highly recommend David Deida's books, both Dear Lover and Way of the Superior Man. And it's actually a required reading for anybody who goes through the Road to Sacred Union experience. And not only are you going to read the one if you're polarized in your masculine, like we've talked about in the past, polarized more in purpose and doing and providing for the family, versus the feminine, which is more about being, more about keeping the container of the home happy, more about nurturing. Well, when you understand which one you're polarized in, not only does it help to read the book that's going to help you on the path, but it helps to read the book of the opposite. So you know how they internally navigate life. You know what lights them up, both sexually and in relationship, emotionally, as well as yourself. So once again, Dear Lover and Way of Superior Man, highly recommended. And if you're interested in the Road to Sacred Union experience, a must read. But let's get into the spicy stuff. Now I'm going to share a little bit of what some secret ancient mystery schools would share with their adepts, with their people that have been initiated into those mystery schools. And that is, they understood that sexuality and that sexual energy is some of the most potent energy. And you can use this to create a direct experience with the Creator. And this is what could literally just be a moment of total body shaking, full union, ecstatic orgasm, right? Just creating that dissolution of self, merging fully with the partner, and if only briefly, touching the source of creation. Like, it's not by fact sometimes you scream out, "Oh God," while you orgasm. And that's just what I call ecstatic blast off. So mystery schools knew that you can combine different tools and practices, even like Tantra is an example of this, right? Specific practices to help cultivate that deeper connection. And when you come together and then experience that ecstatic lovemaking, you can blast each other off and have connection with Source, because you are connecting to the highest energy of creation available to us. So this is something I go much deeper in the experience that I offer, but also share some Easter eggs. If you're like, David, I just want to jump in right now and learn about this, where do I go? Well, back to my mentor, Jamie Wheel. And if you look up the book, Recapture the Rapture, in the back of the book, you'll find some Easter eggs. And you'll also find the chapter, The Alchemist Toolbox. So there you go. Now, before you jump into, which I know you're probably already going to hit pause and go buy the book and jump into that. Before you do that, please hear this warning, right? Before you blast off into the highest ecstatic state possible available to us as human beings, what do you need to do first? You got to build the foundation. Otherwise, you're not going to stick the landing. So this is where, on the Road to Sacred Union and the program we offer, my wife and I offer, it's not just as important to share the actual practical ways to blast off, but more importantly, how do you build that foundation? And today I'm going to talk about 3 things that can really help you build a solid foundation. And this is commitment, communication, and alignment to higher values. So first, as I've shared, it starts with commitment, right? Committing to stay in the bag, committing on the upward path. And commitment is a practice in of itself. Some days it's going to feel really easy. Some days it's going to feel impossible. But as long as you hold that commitment, you will get through to the other side. And then what's next? Well, communication. Because it's not a matter of if you guys will get in a disagreement, but when. If you're in a committed relationship or you're married, you know it really is one of the hardest things out there. And this is where I'll share one of my favorite tools that I've discovered in this arena. But lastly, it's shared values. And that's one of the things that we help couples draw out. Because values are like the guiding force. I actually talked about this in the last episode in spiritual flow and coming back to a state of being. And values are like the lines around a box that will keep you going towards the right values, the right qualities to embody that will allow you to continue to grow, that will allow you to continue to embody your potential, that will allow you to continue to embody more love and more love and more love. So when you uncover those shared values, this is something you can continuously come back to, especially after you have those disagreements, especially after you have those fights, especially after you start to question your ability to stay committed. Well, you come back to your shared values and what you two are committed to creating together, right? This is sacred union because this is ultimate creation. Now, I'd add a little secret tip, and that is to place forgiveness and grace somewhere in those collection of values. Because this is like the lubrication to your path to sacred union. And this is to say that we are all perfectly imperfect. And we're all here embodied in physical form because it's not perfect in physical form, at least our idea of perfection. And we're here to learn. We're here to go through the obstacle course of life. And you're going to mess up. You're going to trip. You're going to have fights. You're going to do shitty things to each other that you wouldn't imagine doing. Usually unconscious, sometimes consciously. But really it comes back to how can you come back to this place of grace and forgiveness. So add those into your values and you're going to have a lot more smoother journey than the jagged rocks. So we can spend hours talking about various ways to build the foundation as a couple, as well as blasting each other off into divine union. But once again, remember, especially when it comes to blasting each other off, and if you already bought the book, Recapture the Rapture, you're like, I want to ask David more questions, I'm going to instill this now, because I'm going to instill it working together. And that is rule number 1 is make haste slowly, right? We've talked about this before, being the alchemist. Make haste slowly. Because I have to warn you, if you got this far into this video and you're already ready to jump in, and it's helpful to know, I call it blast off, and I talk about building your foundation because the actual metaphor Jamie Wheel uses is this is level 5 rock climbing. When you start to play with the Alchemist toolbox, when you start to realize how to unlock these peak state of consciousness moments and ecstatic practices on demand with your partner, well, you are literally playing with fire. And because you get into this altered state of consciousness together, you get into the highest levels of ecstatic love, bliss, and union, well, there's also opportunity for things in your subconscious to come to the surface. And this is just to know you're getting into the realms of altered states, altered places of awareness, altered, you could almost say dimensions. So just be prepared. The more that you could slowly dip your toe into the water, then jump all in, the smoother your landing is going to be, or the greater likelihood of being able to integrate these experiences together. And this is to also share an important part. I just talked about stuff coming up, and to join in sacred union is really about coming together so that you could lean on each other to clean out the cobwebs in yourself, in your partner, and even your ancestors, right? What is that trauma in your lineage that you can help release? And coming together in sacred union, striving toward the highest, highs of light and love embodied, well, it's walking the path to bring that light, bring that love to all parts, inner parts of yourself, as well as your lineage. So I just want you to know that before you jump right into blast off practices and everything else. Because when you come back to that grace, you'll come back to that grace of being able to hold space for each other and really cultivating, like a garden, the most beautiful relationship that you can. And now I want to talk about one of the most impactful practices that I've started to use in my own relationship that I know will absolutely change yours. And that is, first of all, you've probably heard of your love language. If you haven't, start there. Start by understanding how your partner loves to receive love, because then you'll be able to, like a lock and key, be able to figure out, because sometimes you try to give love, but it's not received fully as you thought it would, and then that creates another argument, and then you get in another fight, and you're wondering what's going on. You were just trying to love your partner. So first of all, check out the book Love Languages and figure out how each other loves to give and receive love, because that's going to create a massive shift in your relationship. But the other thing we don't typically think about is the opposite of that. And that is, what is your fight language? So this means when you get into an argument, what is your natural coping mechanism? And I could share my own experience. I grew up in a very stoic, I guess you could say more masculine environment, right? Rancher attitude, don't really show your emotions, just hold on to it, go internal. And I was the youngest in the family, so I didn't have other kids, really just to say it was me at the house, and not a highly emotional upbringing. Whereas my wife was the opposite. She had a whole household full of females, and they were very emotional and expressive. But this is to say, when I get in an argument, my natural response is to disassociate, is to repress, to kind of put up a wall and create space. Now, I also know it takes me longer to fully feel all the feelings and go through the process to get to the other side. Whereas my wife is the opposite. She's somebody who expresses and leans into the argument and uses her expression to hopefully get expression back to help work through it. So you could see this push and pull, how if we don't understand our fight language, we're actually pushing each other by our natural responses of how we go through fights. We're actually pushing each other in the opposite way that we want, right? If something happens and she gets upset and then I shut down, and then because I shut down, she feels worse because she feels no connection, and then she's trying to connect, but then I don't have my space to feel my feelings, and then shit just hits the fan quickly. So when you understand your own fight language, right? Are you somebody who shares similar qualities? Or maybe you both shut down and you don't understand, and then you need somebody to take the first initiative, or whatever that is for you. Understanding your fight language will help you understand how to create terms to get you back into center that much quicker. Because, for example, now my wife knows that if something happens and I need space and she's ready to talk about it right away and work on it right away, well, if we just communicate, hey, let's talk about this in the evening when the kids are asleep, or let's talk about this tomorrow when I have space to feel it fully, or whatever she needs at the moment, then there's an agreement, and then there's not this added baggage of feeling like your partner isn't committed or doesn't love you or doesn't want to communicate with you, which this you could see is the downward spiral that pulls us into harder and harder circumstances. So practice with this. This could be a great topic during date night, right? What is that fight language that we both do? How do we either unconsciously or consciously adapt, our behavior adaptations to when we get into arguments? And how can we get back into middle faster? So I hope this episode served you. I know if you practice fight language, it will completely shift your relationship, because you'll be able to get back into baseline, back into center that much quicker. And I also know when you start to practice more of the ecstatic lovemaking, that you will be able to blast yourself off and hit those highest peaks of love and union. So if you're interested in hearing more about the Road to Sacred Union experience, go ahead and message me privately. This is a private retreat. And if this episode got you excited and this is something you just want to jump deeper into with your partner, well, go watch or listen to this episode with your partner. And then hopefully this sparks some really beautiful conversations of how you could commit and embody more of the values and more of the practices to help you along the path to sacred union. Thank you, and I wish you a golden relationship.